My gift to you this year is reading 12 Christmas episodes to you before Christmas. And this is the third episode for the third day of Christmas. I give to you Christmas in Our Town by Alice Van Leer Carrick. Do you know I have discovered an ineffable test for old age? My old age, my real old age, when I shall be tottering and worn by time, and ancient enough to welcome my last long home. It will come on that doleful day when I do not feel a little shiver of happiness at the fall of the first snow, or the joyful ringing of Christmas bells. Of course, I am all too well aware that the gladsome sensation is but fleeting, that in mid-April I shall be somewhat surfeited with deep drifts high piled beneath my parlor windows, and that when the madding holidays are over, I shall croon to myself a sad little song of my own making. Christmas comes but once a year. If it came any more, I wouldn't be here. But the magic of the seasons blessedly will intervene. Soon my tall dress for bridal are going to tap with slender fingers at the pane, green summer, her train embroidered thick with flowers, again will walk in beauty over the north country. And to carry further my lyric analogies, I know that autumn plans to ply her gaudy paint-brushes and once more lacquer the hillside with golden and crimson. And in the quiet, bare brown time, when all the distance are luminously purple, and the naked trees outline the pattern of their branches against a November sky. Why, that's a gentle prelude, played in a minor key, to softly falling snow, and I begin to listen for the musical jingle of sleigh bells, and there's frost in every word of that phrase. Even to feel a certain enthusiasm for the long and strong bands of New England winter inevitably to be laid across my life. Somehow cold weather has lost its fancied austerity and become wholly lovable. I wish I remembered more about the southern Christmases, but you see, I was so little then, and now in my mind there's just a whirling kaleidoscope of windy weather and gray river that rose and rose, of huge turkeys and huger spiced round, a delicacy I have never forgotten, and the steaming fragrance of eggnog, and people singing Christmas, and firecrackers, some of the sweet Tennessee customs we brought north with us. That is, our toys were put into our stockings that, if you had been very naughty, might hold switches and ashes, or so my nurse said. But our Christmas goodies, the oranges and candies, were all piled on big plates. Do you know that this is a Pennsylvania Dutch custom too? But we never had a tree, and I always wanted one. How our three have always adored winter, white winters with Christmases as the core of their heart, wide glistening fields and pine-trimmed hills, gardens tucked away, safe under spring, but where none the less that magic rose of Noel might blossom, and all the little houses sleep under thick, smooth coverlets made, you must understand, with the feathers of that Frau Hold has shaken down out of the wonderful sky. O says that Christmas always makes him think of tinkling bells, but to me it means long ago legends of our children gathered about the friendly fireplace. One such memory comes to mind now. We were sitting in front of it popping corn, and we had been writing letters to Santa Claus. Do you remember how it's done? Well, this is the way. You write your letters very carefully, addressing them to Rock Candy Castle, Elfdom. I've forgotten where we first got that idea, but we've always used it. And then you drop the notes into the embers. It was very warm and pleasant, and there was the hearth and the walls printed by the firelight, and the witches cozily making tea out under the lilac bush, and all at once looked at me with trustful round blue eyes and said, I don't suppose that any little children in the world are as happy as we are. Oh, those blessed bygone days when our burns were wee things, and all their simple pleasures lay in our willing hands. And here, too, we read about the Christmas stories. We began with a Christmas carol, but alas, we had to abandon it, for as Marley's ghost, Jay wept with abject terror, an emotion I well understood, for when I was 6 and one of the little waits singing under Scrooge's windows in our Saturday school play, I grew cold with fear when the powdered white-clad figure of Marley stalked upon the stage, clanking his chains, and this in spite of the fact that I perfectly well knew that he was our harmless librarian, the mildest-mannered man who ever handed out hymnals or recommended the daisy chain to inquiring scholars. So we gave up Dickens and turned to The Night Before Christmas and The Tailor of Gloucestershire, that beloved whimsy of good little mice, and the bad big Simpkin, and the mayor's coat, which must be finished by Christmas Day in the morning. Now, as I look back at those beginning years, I wonder that we ever could have thought them hard. No, our difficulties were to come later. Of course, being the first grandchild, M was showered with gifts. O's study became a huge unpacking, embellishment full of delightful, inappropriate things, like trains and rocking horses and elaborate walking and talking dolls, with which her enthralled parents played most of the evening. And then in our ambition, we had bought too large a tree, and the bottom had to be sawed off, and the branches lopped away, and it wobbled appallingly every time we tried to put it up. And when at last, tired to the bones of our souls, we had just dozed off, well meaning students caroling under our bedroom windows to the effect that they were all dead broke, and they wouldn't be staying here, so here's a happy new year, shattered our dearly bought repose. 8 o'clock celebration was out of the question. I was far too busy seeing that the children didn't eat too many Christmas goodies or dash out improperly clad to try their new flexible flyers or their shiny skis, and there was the big pewter platter of varnished, the platter that invariably held our Thanksgiving and Christmas turkeys. Somehow, in the hurry, it was always forgotten until the last moment, and then the same turkey to cook. And what a busy social whirl that morning was, our tree to display, other trees to be visited, for we are still a simple-minded folk, and neighborly a community, where each depends upon the other. Last belated presents to be given and received, and 1,000 cards to range on my tip table. Ah, well, perhaps it's not so different now, for we are creatures of beautiful habit, and Christmas is always a beautiful bother and a bustle. Wreaths to be put in all the windows, and lovely trailing greens. A big box comes to me from a gracious friend in collecting ways down in Texas, to drape along the tall white mantels, to place over every picture. The mistletoe hangs on the cottage wall. Sing hi ho, the mistletoe bough, and all my dear silhouettes have sprigs of holly so that they won't feel homesick and neglected. There's always a last moment rush, too, all ready to have brought a miles of crimson ribbon, enough apparently to girdle the globe, but we are sure to need some final bit, and M, nimble-footed and willing, dashes down just before the big store, our local Marshall Fields, closes, and buys miles more. And next we must trim our candles and set them in our small paned windows, welcoming lights to guide the wandering steps of that little Christ-child. Everywhere, down the elm-arched, curved street, tapers are twinkling, and although we know just how it is going to look, we needs must walk down to the end of the flagged pathway to enjoy its air fresh and to say again, as we have said so many years, that our little cottage dreaming under the soft coverlet that good Frau Hold has woven is the very loveliest of all. Then came the stockings to be hung with care, not just by the chimney, but, according to an old family custom of our own, on the chairs in front of the friendly fireplace, each pair pinned together with stout safety pins, and I must admit that our plight is as poor as Mr. Gissing's. We have used multitudes, and always we are searching for these elusive necessities. The littlest daughter still brings down the tiny old slate back, grown far too small for her now. But oh, how different the stockings are! No longer small, warm, woolly things, but cobwebby chiffon silk for the girls, and for Jay those resplendent hose that emblazon the windows of our college shops. However, to be strictly truthful, O's and my modest gear remains much the same. Another minor difference is that the children no longer wake us in the gray dawn. No, we wake them at 9 o'clock. But just as when they were very small, we still circle round the tall fir, glistening with tinsel, happy with bobbing glass balls and dangling icicles, and sing, "There's a wonderful tree, a wonderful tree." Thank heavens we have always been together at Christmas, that magic time when the years fall away, and our three are once more little children. Truly, I don't believe people can ever love Christmas in the city as we do in the country. It must be less human, more impersonal. Another joy of ours, a holy joy, is the mystery we give every year in our town, a festival that belongs to us, in the strangest setting. For the mystery might have come straight down from the Middle Ages. At least it is a lineal descendant of the Church, and yet it is held in the old white 18th century meeting house, a fine old piece of architecture, calmly severe in its classical lines, and utterly aloof from the ardent religious glow that comes from the jeweled windows and the Gothic tradition. But on that one marvelous night it grows wonderfully gentle and warm, blazing with a myriad candles and garlands with green laurel. I suppose Judge Samuel Sewall, rigorous dissenter and outspoken detester of Christmas as a popish celebration, would turn in his narrow grave if he could see it. For always we chose the loveliest of our girls for the Madonna. Sometimes Rossetti might have painted her, seated among tall lilies, and again, with her long and lustrous brown, dark, smoothly bonded hair, she could have stepped straight from an Italian canvas of the early Renaissance. And the angels are young, too, and fair akin to the Lady Mary's handmaidens, whose names are like sweet symphonies. In our town, every little lass grows up in the hope of some time being an angel, just as the little lads plan to be shepherds. If ever you are in Hanover at Christmastide, come with me to the mystery. I know you will love it just as I do. The thronged church, yellow candle flames illuminating the shadows, and distant harmonies of clear voices, and then the angels bearing great waxen tapers and chanting, "Silent night, holy night," as they pass in the reverent procession down the long aisles. They are just the girls I have known all their days in Hanover, and their robes are lovely white cheesecloth trimmed with gilt paper, their crowns of glory twisted tinsel. But to all of us it is a hallowed and gracious vision. And when they kneel before the Madonna in the little manger and sing, "What child is this that laid to rest?" my heart literally skips a beat with sheer happiness. And next comes the shepherds. They too are my familiar friends, praising that first Noel. Last of all, the wise men, offering their gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, and gorgeous with every oriental robe and scarf that we can beg or borrow. Next year we mean to have a Moorish king. Wasn't it Balthazar? with a turban like a blossoming almond tree, and cherubim with gilded hands and faces, and Raphael's Holy Family. Ah, if only I might invite old Samuel Sewall. He'd come, of course, to thunder denunciations, but maybe he would remain to pray. For what does our Christmas mystery mean but peace on earth and goodwill to men? The end. And that's the end of our third day of the 12 days of Christmas.